Is photography dead? The short answer is no. The long answer, and the one you really need to hear, is that you're asking the wrong question. I remember standing on the floor of a trade show in Toronto. This would have been 94, 95, and the floor was packed. Rows of booths, printers, labs, all of them showing off their latest and greatest. You couldn't walk 10 feet without someone handing you a business card. And the energy was, well, it was electric. Everyone was working, everyone was competing, everyone was terrified, but in a really good way, because it was the kind of energy that honed your awareness and sharpened you. And here's the thing, back then, if you told me that 30 years later I'd be sitting here recording a video about whether photography was dead, I would have laughed. I would have pointed at that trade show floor and said, look at it. Look at all of it. This profession is indestructible. But you know what else was on that trade show floor that year? Film. Massive amounts of it. Processing chemistry, transparency scanners. An entire industry built on something that was about to vanish in less than a decade. Nobody really saw that coming or fully understood what it meant. And that's the first thing you need to understand about whether photography is dead. Every generation of photographers has stood at a funeral they were sure was theirs. Now here's the twist in all of this. The thing that actually did start killing commercial photography wasn't digital cameras. It wasn't smartphones. It wasn't AI. It was the CD-ROM. Seriously. So here's the thing. I didn't just watch this happen. I was one of the people who helped make it happen. In '97, I started shooting digital on a commercial scale. I had bought an Agfa Studio Cam and then the Leaf 4.5 scanning back. And I can tell you, few photographers in my world understood what I was doing. They'd walk past the studio and see this thing. This camera with a cable running into a computer the size of a cooler. And they'd shake their heads, like, that's not photography. They'd say, that'll never replace film. And you know what? They were right. It didn't replace film, at least not yet. The quality wasn't there. The resolution wasn't there. But that wasn't the point. The point was that the printed catalog, the thing that had paid my overhead and every commercial photographer's overhead for 30 years, was about to be replaced by a CD-ROM, a PDF on a disk. The client didn't need a drum scanned 8x10 transparency anymore. They didn't need the processing lab. They didn't need the courier with the foam lined case. They needed images that looked good enough on a screen. And the CD was faster, cheaper, lighter. You could mail 50 of them for the cost of one courier run. So really the web didn't kill the catalog, the CD did. The web didn't take off until the 2000s, but by then the damage was already done. The expectation had already shifted. The client had already figured out that they didn't need perfect. They needed fast and cheap. And once that door opened, once the person signing the check realized that you can distribute an entire season's product photography on a piece of plastic the size of a coaster, it never closed again. And the irony? I was one of the guys with the cutting edge digital camera thinking I was ahead of the curve. And yeah, maybe I was. But the curve was pointing straight down. Within 2 years, Eaton's was gone. The catalog work was gone. Half the commercial studios in Toronto closed within 5 years. This had nothing to do with the quality or ability of the photographers or the images. It was simply because the need evaporated. The medium changed. The client, the one writing the check, found a way to communicate without us. And here's the thing, if you're sitting there right now watching this thinking, that sounds exactly like what's happening today with AI and smartphones and social media. Well, you're right. It is exactly the same thing, but you're still asking the wrong question. Because when we say photography died, what we usually mean is the photography business model that I was comfortable with died. And those are not the same thing, right? What died in the 90s was the catalog studio, the assembly line, the factory floor of photography where you could make a comfortable middle-class living shooting toasters on a seamless background for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and spend the weekends at the cottage. That died. That's gone. That's not coming back in this universe or any parallel one. Now, what died in the 2000s was the mid-tier editorial photographer. The magazine assignment, the $2,500 day rate for a portrait that ran a quarter-page size. It's gone. The magazines either died or stopped paying, and the photographers who refused to adapt kind of just went with them. What's dying right now, what you're watching die in real time, is the generic photographer. The person who shows up, points a camera at something, and delivers technically competent images with no point of view. See, AI can do that. A teenager with a good smartphone and a good eye can do that. You don't get paid for competence anymore. That floor has completely collapsed. But, and this is where it gets uncomfortable for a lot of people, what never died was a photographer with something to say. That photographer survived every disruption, from film to digital, print to web, catalog to e-commerce, magazine to social media, every single one of them. Because the disruption changes the distribution, not the vision. It changes how the work gets to the audience, not whether the work is relevant. Now here's the thing. I've been in this profession for over 40 years. I've watched colleagues, friends disappear. Some retired, some quit, and some died. And I've watched a handful, a very small handful, not just survive, but get better, get sharper, become more essential as they got older. And you know what separated them? They stopped asking whether photography was dead and started asking what they actually had to say. Because that's the exact thing that defines your future. That's the fire. The death of a business model is not the death of a profession. It's a filter. It separates the people who are in it for the paycheck from the people who are in it because they had no choice. The people who would make photographs even if nobody paid them. The people who, when the floor collapses, don't fall. They land somewhere new and start building again. I've seen it. I've done it. I've seen photographers who are absolute nobodies in the film era become legends in the digital era because digital let them do what they've always wanted to do. I've seen photographers who are at the absolute peak of their profession in the 80s, names you'd recognize, disappear completely within 4 years of the first digital batch shipping. Not because they couldn't learn the tech, because they didn't have anything to say with it. So is photography a dead profession in 2026? Well, if what you mean is, can I make a comfortable living doing exactly what photographers did in 1995? Yeah, 100%, yes. That profession is dead. It's been dead for 20 years. You're standing at the funeral that happened before some of you were born. But if what you mean is there still a place for someone who sees the world differently, who can make images that stop people, who has something genuine and emotionally unique to say, yeah, then no. That profession has never been more alive. Because in a world drowning in images, the person who can make you feel something is more valuable, not less. In a world where AI can generate a technically perfect photograph from a text prompt, the photograph that was lived, the one that carries the weight of actual human experience, it becomes irreplaceable. AI also can't create an image of a subject that has never been photographed before. And that's what I'm here to document. That's what this channel is. Not nostalgia for a vanished world, but evidence of what the world produced when it demanded something real. You know, there's a quote, I think it was Cartier-Bresson, or maybe it was just someone who'd had a few drinks. But the line was, the profession of photography is always dying. The act of photography never does. And that's the thing. People who ask whether photography is dead are usually the people hoping for permission to quit. I'm not going to give you that. Because some of you, not all of you, but some of you are the ones who will still be making work when the next disruption hits. And the one after that. So tell me what you think in the comments. If you felt this, if you've looked at the industry and thought, what's the point? Tell me what kept you going or what didn't. I'm Ferdinand, and welcome to the wrong side of the camera.